What's up, you amazing people? I hope you're having a fantastic day. You are, of course, watching and listening to the Daily Dirty 30, also known as the DDT, here on The Kevin Lee Show. And I am your host, Kevin Lee. Now, for those of you who do not know what the DDT is all about, let me take a moment to explain. You see, it's a show that airs live at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, Monday through Friday, and it's where I get to spend 30 minutes telling you, the viewer, all about the things that bother me today. What do I get out of it? That's easy. It's therapeutic. Why should you tune in? That's even easier. It's entertaining. Sound like a fair trade? Good. Let's get to it. Hello, friends. Hope everybody's having a happy Tuesday. I know I am. That's obvious, right? No. Apparently forgot to add back in some graphics here. I apologize. Anyways, I hope everyone is having a happy Tuesday. I know I am. Again, this is going to be take 2 of the microphone test. Yesterday was take 1. And it worked generally, but I don't think the volume was very good. I think it might be a little better today. Might even suck. I don't know. Let's hope not. Let's hope it's good. That being said, yesterday, if you noticed, if you listened to the second half of the broadcast, you might have noticed there were some crickets in the background. Those were literally crickets in the background being picked up by my microphone. So hopefully we do not have a repeat of that. Anyways, what are you here for? What are you watching? You're of course watching the Daily Dirty 30 here on the Kevin Lee Show. This is a show that airs every Monday through Friday, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. And I, of course, am your host, Kevin. Today, we are going to be talking about headlines once again. And the first headline we're going to jump into is Kamala Harris, a Kamala Harris administration. So, as you see on your screen, you have Kamala Harris, right? You probably think, hey, I know who she is. I know what you're going to talk about. Do you, though? Do you really know? So what happened is, earlier today, yesterday maybe? It was earlier today or yesterday. Kamala Harris made a boo-boo. Just a little one. Not a big one, but a boo-boo nonetheless. And that was this. Kamala Harris accidentally talks about her plans for a Harris administration. If you've watched the show once, you've probably seen that, you've seen that we've talked about, sometimes in great detail, but usually just a little bit, we've talked about how if Joe Biden does indeed win the election, he will essentially never be president. Now, it's going to be one of two reasons. One, he'll step down almost immediately, or B, more than likely, he will be president for a while, but really won't be in charge. Everyone else around him, including Kamala Harris, will be making the decisions because it'll be her presidency, and probably within 6 months to a year at the most, he will step down. So that kind of became self-evident because of what Kamala Harris said and did while she was attending a round table. Discussing the Democrats' plans for the economy, the candidate for vice president said Saturday, a Harris administration, together with Joe Biden, as the president of the United States. So I think I have the video of it right here. I do. Let's listen.
A Harris administration together with Joe Biden.
Did you catch that?
A Harris administration together with Joe Biden.
So you can tell that she said what she wanted to say, right? She wasn't trying to say anything that was wrong. Pardon me, I have my other microphone sticking in the in the picture there. She was just letting what's actually naturally coming about in her life and the conversations just kind of sneak out by accident, right? And she did a good job covering up. She initially said something she realized she wasn't supposed to, and then immediately covered it up by using proper language, by introducing or stating that Joe, of course, is the president, will be the president if they are actually indeed elected. But it was actually kind of humorous. And considering we are in 2020, considering we are in September of 2020, we've gone through several months of 2020, we could use a little levity, right? So moving on, we're going to talk about this guy, Bob Woodward. Do you know who Bob Woodward is? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Have you ever heard of the term deep throat? Yes, that actually does involve him and the Nixon scandal and all that. But he was one of the reporters in Washington who helped break the case, or not break the case, but break the story when a person came to him and his partner. I can't remember his partner's name. I only remember Bob Woodward because he's really the only one who's still doing, journalism. And he wrote a book, I believe it's called Rage. And to write this book, surprisingly, sort of, surprisingly, the Trump administration allowed him exclusive time with the president, one-on-one, with the tape recorder, where no one else was allowed to be, no one else was allowed to tread, just him. He was there during certain meetings. I mean, obviously nothing that was necessarily sensitive, for the state or sensitive for the government, but just things that, a normal person, even a normal reporter would never have access to. And the reason why, at least this is a claim, and it makes sense that the Trump administration said they did this, is because they indeed wanted to have a transparent presidency, right? They want to show that they're doing their due diligence of trying to make sure that everything is indeed up on the up and up front, and not hiding, not done behind the scenes, right? They shouldn't have done that, because obviously Bob Woodward is not a fan of the president, and the president was never going to win him over. Because of this, Bob Woodward is, of course, using some of the things that he found to not only write a book about the president, but to expose certain truths about the president out and about in the real world. And again, nothing that's come out so far was really damning in any way, shape, or form. But of course, Bob Woodward and his team, his publicists, the people around him, other Democrats are trying to skew anything they can. They're bringing out audio tapes. I mean, you hear the audio tapes, they're really just kind of silly. But that being said, they're doing their darndest, without a doubt. But here it says, so it is, Rage is the name of the book. Author Bob Woodward's latest tape reveals President Donald Trump confessing to fleeing from the Oval Office after someone sneezed because the coronavirus was so contagious. Now, there's a lot of half-truths in this statement. So this is taken from a story, right, talking about it. And what happened was, this is kind of the quote of it. It says, I was in the White House a couple of days ago, meeting with 10 people in the Oval Office. And this is President Trump speaking. I should have prefaced it by saying that. I apologize. I was in the White House a couple of days ago, meeting with 10 people in the Oval Office, and a guy sneezed innocently, not a horrible, just a sneeze. Trump is heard telling Woodward in a tape dated on April 13th. The entire room bailed out, okay, including me, by the way. So Trump was trying to be personable, right? He was trying to get someone to, I don't know what I'm doing. My bad. So yeah, he was just trying to be personable, right? As you would imagine Donald Trump trying to be. I don't know if you've picked up on this, right? But Donald Trump has been in the limelight for many years. So who he is now as a president has not changed. Like, he did not become a different person when he became president. He was always this weird, in your face, larger than life, I can tell you a funny story. I can make you laugh. I'll tell you a dirty joke. Almost like he is. He's a salesman. It's what he is. And he still is a salesman, even though he is the president of the United States of America. And again, I think he was trying to package himself up in such a way where he could sell himself to Bob Woodward. Woodward would fall in love with him and tell a great story about the president, and Trump could be happy, but that was never going to happen. And he should have known better. So it says the timing is significant because the conversation happened the same day Trump declared that he had the ultimate authority to push states to reopen their economies. I don't know if you remember that conversation, but it did happen. It did occur. He was addressing the press corps, and he did talk about, he was questioned, indeed, if he had the authority to force the states open. He said, that he did. He said it was within his power. Of course he didn't. I don't know if it was just an empty promise. I don't know if he really didn't know that he doesn't have the power. Who's to say, right? I mean, Trump is, and that's the thing which I don't think enough people give him credit for, right? A lot of people in Washington hate Donald Trump. And they don't hate him for the reasons that you might think. They don't hate him for the reasons that you might hate Donald Trump. They hate Donald Trump because literally he is not a politician. See, everyone else in Washington has been involved in politics in one way, shape, or form pretty much their entire lives. They either started out as working as interns and then aides, and then, between schooling and experiences and jobs, they were able to work their way up and maybe hire administrations and staffs. Maybe eventually they even ran for office. Maybe they got elected. It's almost like a special club to be in Washington, right? If you or I, God forbid, ever ran for office and we were elected, right? And all of a sudden we find ourselves going out to Washington to be sworn in, and we're going to be in the House of Representatives or something. We would not be treated the same way as most other people, right? you would notice that there are people on the left and on the right who hate each other, who would very much be getting along right in front of your face, and probably wouldn't even give you the time of day because they don't know you, because they don't trust you, right? So, and it's a club. It's how Washington works, and it's what's the old saying? I've already said in this show probably 3 or 4 times, and I'll probably say it 100 more times before I'm done recording these shows. But it's don't hate the game, or don't hate the player, hate the game, right? So they're all playing a game, and now Trump is not part of that game. I mean, he played politics in New York, sort of, as a businessman trying to get certain deals done, because he was involved in very large transactions within the city of New York, and it's a very politicized city, just like Chicago is. So I'm from the Chicagoland area. I'm very familiar with what goes on in Chicago. So that being said, he had an idea of the workings of politics, but not on the scale of Washington, D.C. It's a completely different animal, right? And he gets there, and he doesn't want to play by their rules. He doesn't want to, jump through their hoops. He doesn't want to play their, he doesn't want to ask for permission. It's not the kind of person he is. So he's made a lot of enemies, obviously on the Democratic side, but even on the Republican side. And that's something else we could talk about real quick. Most people know this, but just in case you don't, you do realize, like, Donald Trump is not a Republican, right? He's just not a Republican. He never was. He joked many years ago in an interview that if he ever ran for office, he'd probably run for a Republican because he figured it would be easier to get elected, and which might be true, may not be, but depending upon where you're at, that's how it works. And he indeed ran as a Republican. In fact, he spent his entire life as a Democrat, a very, very hardcore Democrat, mind you, not even just like a Democrat. He supported Democrats his whole life. He gave to Democratic, candidates. He donated to the party. He was always a lifelong Democrat until he wanted to run for office. And then shortly before he ran for office, he basically, no longer registered as a Democrat, no longer voted as a Democrat, and then all of a sudden became a Republican. Again, he's not the first person to do this, but he is very high profile in fact, because he is A, Donald Trump, and B, he did end up becoming president of the United States of America. But I digress. We've gotten a little off track here, but you know what? That's okay too. So again, the timing was significant because of the conversation happened the same day that Trump declared to the public, that is, that he had the ultimate authority to push states to reopen their economies, which he was pressing them to do. Again, because he's a businessman, he thought it would help. He thought it would be good for the economy for them to actually, open the economy, so things weren't shut down, people weren't losing their jobs and losing their businesses. Because most people know this, but some people know this, but not everybody. That's probably a better way to put it. Donald Trump, again, he is a businessman, right? And most people don't understand that businesses, when you think of business, you always think of, Amazon, Apple, Kohl's department store, Macy's, large manufacturing productions, large food production companies, right? Kraft Foods, things like that, major conglomerates. But that is not the typical business. In fact, 70% of everyone so give you very simple numbers very quickly. Essentially, 20% or 1 out of every 5 Americans who are working work for the government. May it be on a federal level, state level, or local level, right? They work for the government. That leaves 80% of the population. Of that 80%, right? If that 80% now becomes 100%, 70% of those are actually employed not by large companies, but by small companies, by small businesses. And even though a small business is a small business, it still can be a fairly large entity, because a small business counts with anybody up to 500 employees. So you could have 400 employees. That's a pretty big business, at least on my scale. But as far as the government's concerned, it's still a small business. But still, 70% of everyone who is employed outside of the government is employed by small businesses. So they make a big deal here. So we understand that most small businesses do not have the type of capital and savings to ride out a long 6-month drought with not being able to work, not being able to pay their employees, not being able to pay their rent or, their lease for their buildings or whatever. Because, most people probably realize this. Most businesses do not own their buildings that they operate in. They rent them. They rent the land, or maybe they paid for the building, but they rent the land, and they have a lease deal, but they have to pay it. And it's a monthly or yearly lease. So Trump recognized this. He was trying to get people back to work. And again, it's just Bob Woodward and his people trying to make Trump look bad. But again, Trump does enough things on his own to make him look bad. You don't have to stretch the truth. It doesn't make you look good, because anybody with half a brain like myself, and again, I'm not a genius, right? I'm not some mastermind when it comes to politics or to just being able to pick apart what's going on in the world and tell what's real and what isn't. I just use my common sense, and it's pretty simple to know what game he's playing, right? And again, I don't blame him for playing this game, because he's just trying to be a cog in the wheel, if you will, a piece on the chessboard, trying to do his part to take down this evil president. And again, part of the reason why people consider Donald Trump to be an evil president is because, well, they can't control him. They don't know, they don't have enough dirt on him, and every time they try to pull up the dirt and impeach him, it doesn't even work, right? So moving forward here. Okay, so we're going to hop back now over to Kamala Harris. Yes, but for a different reason. Kamala Harris apparently does like guns, just not yours. You've heard her talk about how she wants to not necessarily repeal the Second Amendment, but she's kind of leaned that way. She talked about removing assault weapons, any mean-looking gun, those sort of things, right? She's against that sort of thing. She wants to get them out of the hands of you, because you don't deserve one. You can't have one. You can't handle one. You're dangerous. But here it talks about the VP hopeful Kamala Harris, who says she supports the funding police, is seen in Miami being protected by dozens of cops. Not like one cop, not like two, dozens of cops, as well as Secret Service agents, and one of them was pictured holding a quote-unquote assault rifle. One day we'll have a conversation about this. Maybe I'll spend a half an hour, because it's not even that difficult of a topic, right? I'll pull up a couple pictures, a couple videos, a few definitions, and we'll talk about what is and what is not an assault rifle. What people in the general public consider to be an assault rifle is not an assault rifle. It's just a rifle. It's just mean looking, right? It just looks like a military gun. It doesn't shoot any faster. It doesn't do anything any different. It's just a rifle. It's just easier to hold, easier to maintain. People like them. There's nothing wrong with it. And they are legal, and they should be legal. They should never not be legal. We should have a nice conversation on here sometime about the Second Amendment, because the Second Amendment is important for so many reasons. And I wish I could get into them right now, about all of them, and I can't, unfortunately. We don't have the time. We're already almost 19 minutes in. But let's keep in mind that, Kamala Harris, if she gets in, she's going to be the president, maybe not day one, but very soon after. She'll be running the show, and then very soon after, she will become president. And she does want to take away your guns, right? Hopefully the Supreme Court won't let her do it. But, the way they've been voting lately, it's kind of hit and miss. So anyways, here is Kamala Harris at the said, meeting she was at. And in the photos exclusively obtained by DailyMail.com, the VP hopeful is seen leaving Florida Memorial University on Thursday, ironically being protected by the same assault rifle that she promised to ban within the first 100 days of her term. Now again, it's kind of funny, because she did say that within her term, but she's not technically going to be president, is she? But of course, we all know she is. So for anyone out there who wants to take the angle that she's not going to be president, that she's not, going to try to take charge from day one, she is. She's already got the plans in place. Yeah. So, and again, I don't know if you're a Democrat. I know I'm not. I don't know if you're a Republican. I know I'm not. I don't have a horse in this race. When it comes to between these two parties, I have my own personal opinions on these two parties. And that being said, anyone who wants to come and try to take away any type of gun or rifle that has already been, deemed legal by the Supreme Court, will hopefully have a big fight. And I don't care what side that comes from. I could very realistically one day see a Republican try to do the same thing. So it's not like just a left thing. There are people on the right who are absolutely un-American and unconstitutional as well, even though they're sworn in to defend the Constitution of the United States. So here is the picture. You'll see it right here. It's got a little Secret Service emblem here and a medic pack. And here are some police officers. So, and then I do find that funny, because Kamala Harris was top cop basically in California, right? and she's been DA. She's been the city DA in San Francisco. She's been the Attorney General in California. Yet apparently she's not a very big fan of the police, which is sad, really. Again, are the police perfect? No. Do they have problems? Yes. Does there need to be reform? 100%. And I, as well as probably 90% of all Americans, are absolutely open to that conversation. But you start throwing around silly, generalized terms like defund the police, and you just look like an idiot. You do. And if you ever have to qualify something after you say, well, I want to defund the police, and they'd be like, well, why would you want to eliminate the police? And people are like, oh, no, I don't want to do that. What do you think defund means? When you defund anything, you take away its funds, so it doesn't operate, right? Right. Moving on, we're going to talk really quickly about J.K. Rowling. I apparently do not know how to speak. So this is J.K. Rowling indeed. She is the author of Harry Potter as well as many other books. What you may or may not know is since Harry Potter, she's been writing some adult books, not like adult themed books, just books written for more of an adult audience. And she writes under a pen name, which I can never remember. Well, it'll come up in a second here. It says J.K. Rowling is accused of transphobia again. So I don't know if you remember this conversation, but a couple months ago, she made a comment because she basically stated a fact, that, men who become women don't menstruate. People got very angry at her. She, again, was just stating a fact. She wasn't personally attacking anyone. She personally had fought very, very hard in the UK and throughout Europe for trans rights. So it's not like she's against trans people. She loves the trans people. It's just she was stating facts and people attacked her for it. Well, now again, people are accusing her, attacking her of transphobia and declared her dead by Twitter mob after making a villain in her latest book a cross-dressing serial killer. Okay, so let's let that sink in just for a few seconds, right? So she's a writer, right? She writes make-believe. She develops characters, right? She has to come up with ideas for who these people are. What are their angles? How do they think? How are they raised? Everyone who's a killer is sort of, warped in some way. So how are they warped? So basically, I don't think the person is even a transvestite necessarily. Maybe they are, but I don't even know if they are. I think they just are kind of twisted and confused type of person. And that's why they dress as a woman, or maybe they're just like a woman. I haven't read the book, obviously, but maybe they just like a woman to sneak in to kill people. I'm not even sure. But because this killer, this serial killer villain in the book is a cross-dresser, now she, of course, has to be transphobic once again. J.K. Rowling is embroiled in yet another trans row after it was revealed that the villain in her latest book is a male serial killer who dresses as a woman to slay his victims. This is the name of the book. It's called Troubled Blood, #1 best. I think this is the book. Or this is the series. I'm not sure. But as you can see, it does say Robert Galbraith. I think that's how you pronounce it, Robert Galbraith. That is her pen name for her adult writings. So he, again, this is a character in the book they're referring to, fears she fell victim to Dennis Creed, who has been dubbed the transvestite serial killer for murdering his victims while wearing female clothing. It's rather crazy, actually. Oop, okay, never mind. So going forward here are some Twitter wars that were going on. So this person was obviously talking about saying, I personally doubt that somebody as transphobic as Rowling could write a book that wasn't inherently transphobic, to be honest. Someone else responded, read the book and then tell us why it's transphobic. Again, good point to be made. Lots of people will hear something or hear a story or see something somewhere and think, oh my God, obviously this person said one thing one day or 20 years ago, or something has been thrown on them, a label has been thrown on them. So anything that has to even be mentioned again in a similar breath, obviously they have to be that one thing. This person's saying, no, read the book and tell us why it, being the book, is transphobic. Give evidence from the book to back up your theory that it is transphobic. So, and this gentleman here is Nick Cohen. Apparently he's a journalist and a critic out in the UK. Very well known out there. I do not know who he is. He was responding to Pink News. Apparently that's another publication on that area, talking about Rowling's latest book is about a murderous cis man That's a term I will never get used to. Cis. You know what cis means? It means straight. It means you are obeying the biology of your body. If you're a man, then you like women. If you're a woman, you like men, right? It's crazy. But anyways, these people were attacking J.K. Rowling, and then Nick Cohen defended again, saying, I've read the latest Strike novel, and the claims it's anti-trans is total blank. I can tell you why it's a total blank without giving away the ending, so I can't tell you why without giving away the total ending, so until you read it yourself, which you should, you will just have to trust me, this is total blank. And I'm literally saying blank because it is completely crossed out, so I don't even know what it says. I can take a guess, but I'm not going to do that. So again, it says, I've read the latest... Okay, I got to repeat that one for some reason. All right, so it says someone else here making a statement saying, but when you combined it with the negative stereotyping she's done about trans women, it shows a clear pattern. Again, she did not negative stereotype trans women in the past, but apparently this person believes she has. It's not anti-trans as such, but it does play into the fears that trans women are cis males looking to spy on women. Again, the critic responds with, read the bloody book, why don't you? And I couldn't agree more. As someone who is a writer, I cannot stand when someone criticizes something without actually even bother to reading it. So here we jump in real quick now. Oh my goodness. So the New York City comptroller says wealthy residents will have to step up and pay higher taxes to close the city's gaping $4.2 billion debt just weeks after Governor Cuomo begged the rich to return. We did talk about this the other day. This is the comptroller. His name is Scott Stringer. Again, this is Governor Andrew Cuomo. We all know who he is. And this is, I'll just say his name, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio. And he says, New York City's wealthiest residents should be prepared to step up and help close the Big Apple's gaping $4.2 billion deficit by paying higher taxes, Comptroller Scott Stringer said. The warning issued today comes just weeks after State Governor Andrew Cuomo issued a desperate plea urging the richest residents to return to the city to help save it from economic ruin. Again, this is going to sound like a broken record because we've talked about this before, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it again. Stringer told Bloomberg TV he believes the city could save $400 million by refinancing debt and as much as $1 billion through efficiencies. That should really strike you, right? The city could simply save $400 million by refinancing its debt and save another $1 billion through efficiencies. What that means is cutting waste. Finding programs that are just throwing money, bad money after good. Finding places where people aren't even doing anything and money's just going to waste, right? This is something they should have been doing anyways. This is a wealthy may need to pay a little more to get us through this crisis, he said. They're not going to have to pay a little more. They're going to have to pay a lot more. This is an interesting fact too. We've also kind of touched on this. Is the number of empty apartments for rent in Manhattan soared to their highest level in recent history, topping 13,000 as residents fled the city and landlords struggled to find new tenants. The number of apartments for rent or listing inventory more than doubled over last year and set a record for the 14 years since data started being collected, according to a report from Douglas Elliman and Miller Samuel. As the number of apartments listed for rent hit 13,117, the number of new leases signed fell by 23%. Now, those may not sound like staggering numbers, but for New York City, it is. There is times in New York City where it's hard to find an apartment, even if you have money, right? You might find an inventory of less than 1,000 or 2,000 available in all of Manhattan. Right now, they've got over 13,000 just sitting empty that they can't get signed. In fact, their new sales signings fell by nearly 25%. It's crazy. And here is a perfect example of why. Here you see New York City, right? This is usually hustle and bustle. I don't care what time of day it is, what day of the week it is. There's usually lines of people. But as you can see, there is plenty of room to stretch, right? You could close your eyes and keep walking, and chances are you're not going to bump into anyone. This is not, and again, I understand it's COVID-19, but this is still not New York City. And again, here's New York City. Most of these stores, this isn't even boarded up. This is just closed, right? That's why they have the paper on there. The store's probably empty. They've abandoned it because this is a tourist shop. If there are no tourists, nobody's going to shop. You're going to be out of work and be out of business very quickly, just like many businesses, unfortunately, are. So now we're going to get to our happy ending. So lately for Happy Endings, we've almost exclusively been playing videos. Today we're going to talk just for a minute. Here's a quote by Dwight D. Eisenhower. Now you can take him or leave him for whatever you want. This is not actually a defense of Dwight D. Eisenhower, but what he said was very important, and it's very poignant today. He's quoted as saying, "Only Americans can hurt America." And it's true. Right now, it's not Russians or the Chinese or any other foreign influence that's hurting America. It's Americans. It's the way we're acting. It's the way we're behaving. It's the way we're treating each other, or the very much sense the way that we're not treating each other. We're not treating each other with kindness. We're not treating each other with patience or love. We're treating each other like crap, right? And it's something to keep in mind. We have an election coming up. And why is this important? Simple. It's important because, as he says, only Americans can hurt America, right? And right now we have a choice to make. Who is going to be the person that we can elect that is going to help America not be hurt? Is that Donald Trump? Is that Joe Biden / Kamala Harris? Or is that somebody else? You need to really think about who you're going to vote for this year, because it matters probably more than it ever has in your entire life. We are at a very sensitive point in our existence. And frankly, the only way that things are ever going to improve is if we actually be smart. We make a smart decision, right? We can't just blindly go with whatever party we're going to go with just because it's what we're supposed to do. What we're supposed to do is look out for each other. What we're supposed to do is do the right thing. So I'm asking you, think about it. Think about what is the right thing for this November. All right, guys, that's it for Tuesday. And we will all see you tomorrow, right? Yes, absolutely. We'll see you on Wednesday. Have a good one. Bye.